one of the things that knowing octopuses personally has deepened in my heart and widened my circle of compassion. And I think it's also something that can help us connect better with everyone. Because when we feel connected, we're no longer lonely, we're no longer frightened, and I think we're less likely to destroy everything.
Hmm. So I think that curiosity has a great value for you. What you write in your books opens readers to adventures in the realm of curiosity. Your curiosity is a vehicle, transport vehicle, to open them to curiosity, to open them to their own curiosity. And of course, you're particularly about um, octopuses and dolphins. And you want an octopus to be curious about you personally, as you're curious about octopuses and many things. For me, having taught in a university, I know that the education system in general doesn't test curiosity as an aspect of learning. Um, and so, what if curiosity could be measured like a quotient, a curious quotient of mind, an inquiry quotient that is called IQ for inquiry quotient? What do you think would be the change in orientation with that?
Well, I think it would make for bolder people, because generally what happens with the animals that we've studied, and I think humans as well, is that um, people who are not curious um, tend to be not necessarily shy, but more fearful. They don't want to go forth. They don't want to meet the other. They might be frightened of people unlike themselves. Um, they're not as interested in the outside world, and they may be very, very, very loving toward their own family. And I'm not saying that these are necessarily, bad people. And I mean, I'm shy myself, but my curiosity leads me outside of myself. And just because I'm shy among most people doesn't mean that I'm not going to go around the world and do bold things.
Not everyone is curious about octopuses and dolphins. And the diversity of your interests and the diversity of your books suggests a curious mind. What in your personal history from childhood influenced the growth of your curiosity? Was it people, events, books, something else? And what were the obstacles you had to overcome to be curious?
Um, I don't. I don't remember a whole lot of my childhood. I had a head injury when I was very young. Um, but I do remember uh, my greatest mentor, who was a Scottish Terrier, and her name was Molly. And I have a picture of her right on my desk, right here. This is equivalent of my little sister, or my not little sister. I was her little sister. She was my big sister. I wanted to be exactly like her because she knew stuff about the world that I did not, and I could see it even as a child. As a child, that your dog hears stuff that you can't hear. Their ears suddenly prick up and they'll start barking at something that you have no idea, but it's there and they're showing you. they'll follow their noses somewhere. You can't smell a thing, but they're going on a beeline to find that thing. It was so obvious. They can see in the dark. They have the tapetum lucidum in the back of the eye, which acts as like a mirror gathering light. They can see in the dark. We can't. We crash into stuff. So I was entranced by her powers and just watched her constantly trying to learn her secrets. It's probably not a good idea for a small child to put their head that close to a Scottish Terrier whose jaws are as large as that as an Airedale. But she was very understanding. She was very kind to me. And she lived into my teenage years. So everything about her, I wanted to know everything about her. I mean, love was part of the ignition for my curiosity about her. And I think that's true when we fall in love with ideas, when we fall in love with music, when we fall in love with individuals of any species. You know, we want to know more about the beloved. Nothing is more beautiful or exciting than new knowledge about the beloved. And the more I get to live on this beautiful earth, the beloved is a universe that's just expanding and expanding and expanding. I don't just love my husband and my friends and my community. I love so many other species. And that powers a curiosity to know everything and to greet every new thing with such excitement, like it's a received gift. And I wake up happy almost every single day.
So, Sai, octopuses are remote from the experiences of human beings in their life, biology, and consciousness. They are alien to us, and we are alien to them. And yet, you have experienced a mutual connection and a mutual awareness, even an intimacy with octopuses. So, there is the paradox there of both remoteness and intimacy. I'm going to call that the octopus paradox. So, when I say remoteness and intimacy, I also think of your role as an introverted author. Like an octopus, you retreat alone into your writing space unobserved. You are connected to your readers who are remote to you. And in the same way, we're connected to anybody watching this video who we can't see. You write to connect with your readers and to share intimate moments with them. You are sharing intimacy with someone you can't see and someone you can't know. Uh, you can't see them as they read and react to what you've written. You anticipate what they might feel as you tell the sad story of the death of your friend, the octopus Octavia. So there is also there the paradox of remoteness and intimacy in your role as an author. The octopus paradox again. In a sense, you are closer to octopuses than your individual readers. So, my question is, how do you see your octopus connection with your readers?
Well, I just share what I observed, knowing or trusting that my readers are as curious as I am. And I think when I write, I try to keep in mind, although I may not know my readers, and in fact, while I'm writing, those readers, you know, they exist somewhere, but they're not reading the thing I'm writing right now. But I trust I'm going to care about them. I trust I'm going to have that connection with them. I think I love that you brought up, the attraction of sameness and the attraction also of difference. I think most people are attracted by sameness. So often that's where I start connecting my readers with some of these animals. I grab them by the sameness and say, look, these these animals are curious like we are. It reminds me of one time I was at the aquarium, and I like to observe the public looking at octopuses to see, what they say. And I came across some teenage girls who were looking at my friend Octavia. And Octavia at that time was on her eggs. And these girls were going, ew, I bet it's slimy. Yuck, it's an octopus. Bleh. And they were saying this about my friend. And I interrupted them and I said, yeah, but look, she's a mother. You know what these things are in the corner? They're her eggs. Look how carefully she's tending to them. And the girls changed right away. They totally were now interested in this octopus because the octopus was showing affection for her offspring. And they could identify with that. They felt affection too. So then I thought, well, maybe they'd like to hear some other cool facts about octopuses. And I forget what it was I was telling them, maybe how they taste with their skin, or maybe, how they can change colors. But I could see their attention starting to waver. They didn't want to hear about how they were different. They wanted to hear how we were similar. So I always try to start by saying, there is a connection. Fall in love with me, along with me, with this animal. And then maybe you'll start to love and be curious about not just our sameness, but our differences.
Um, Talking about sameness and difference, you're aware that the octopuses are different from you. The octopus is aware that you're different from them. Um, and you're probably wondering, how do I look to an octopus? There's a there's strange octopus mirror there of trying to fathom how you look in this strange octopus mirror, how you look to an octopus. So octopuses are totally different in intelligence from them. And if that's so, then what are we? Does an octopus change your sense of what a human being is?
Yeah, I think, humans are raised to think that we are the center of the universe. We've thought this since antiquity in the West, not everywhere, but certainly in the West. Um, and many great thinkers have made it the point of their career not to question that received wisdom, but instead to prove why it is true. Why are humans the best? Well, it's because we use tools, or it's because we have reasoning, or because we have emotions, or because we have language, or because, um, increasingly there's all kinds of experiments with animals that show that we are not unique in these ways after all. And what this lets you experience is humility. I just did a review of a book right here, um, for the American Scholar, and it's called The Arrogant Ape. And the subtitle is The Myth of Human Exceptionalism and Why It Matters. It's coming out in September by a Harvard researcher named Christine Webb. And she argues that our arrogance in believing that we are the center of the whole world is making us so arrogant that we fill the ocean with plastic and we change the climate and we extinguish all these other species and we pollute our own drinking water and we impoverish our own soil. And I think she's right. So knowing the powers of other creatures, which may be greater than our own in many ways, teaches us humility and teaches us awe. And I think that's one of the things that knowing octopuses personally has deepened in my heart and widened my circle of compassion. And I think it's also something that can help us connect better with everyone. Because when we feel connected, we're no longer lonely, we're no longer frightened, and I think we're less likely to destroy everything.
Uh, Sai, you've been very patient in answering my questions, and there's some relief on the way because I'm getting to the end, the final few questions. You know, you've been doing this session with the AC off, air conditioner off, so that uh, you know the audio is better, and you're you're wilting in the hothouse. So I just wanted to let you know relief is around the corner, but unfortunately, when I get to my final questions, they get longer, okay, and more complex. But anyway, okay. The nature of consciousness is a large topic in your octopus book. You talk about consciously entering an altered state of consciousness. You start with your experience of entering the sea as an altered state of consciousness, and you inquire about this change. You ask if this is what the octopuses Octavia and Callie feel like. You talk about human beings seeking out changes in consciousness, and even living creatures like dolphins, you say, eat a specific puffer fish because the toxin produces trances. You also make the connection to the psychologist Carl Jung and the collective unconscious. Jung's collective unconsciousness is a kind of transcendental consciousness in all human beings found in dreams and myths. And you are entering, and you're aware you're entering this altered consciousness naturally without drugs or toxic fish. A purely rational human being, if there is such a thing, might simply reject this idea. And this is a long question, but it is a question. My question is, are you thinking that an altered state like this is a place of communication between species? That is, if you think it is possible to have a degree of communication between species, what is this communication and this state of consciousness? How can you experience understanding an octopus, and how can an octopus experience understanding you?
Well, I mean, I know there's folks like John Lilly who studied dolphins and took a lot of acid and felt that we had to alter our consciousness with drugs to expand our minds. Um, I'm not in that camp myself. I think the greatest tool we have at our disposal is humility and going in with beginner's mind. And if you go in to a relationship thinking that you are so far superior to the one you're trying to learn from, you will see nothing. But if you go in a humble way, as Jane Goodall did with her chimpanzees, open to whatever they will teach you, you will get filled up and you will be surprised. And humans like being surprised.
So, final question. I apologize. It's a long question. It's a very deliberate choice of yours to make consciousness the topic of your final concluding chapter in your octopus book. That choice seems like a statement in itself. You are a seeker of altered states of mind and of altered consciousness. In your book about the pink dolphins of the Amazon, you call dolphins by their Spanish name the encantados, the enchanted ones. In indigenous culture, these pink dolphins are an entry into an enchanted dream world of another consciousness, a transcendental consciousness. You explore that indigenous point of view respectfully. You also visit the former site of an octopus temple on the island of Moorea in French Polynesian. Like the mythic status of the dolphin for indigenous people in the Amazon, the octopus, as you say, has a mythical status for the seafaring Polynesian people. You describe the mythic status of the octopus as, in your words, divine protector, a symbol of unity and peace. In Polynesian, sitting in a Protestant church on the site of a former indigenous octopus temple, you feel a kinship with, in your words, the power of worship and the importance of contemplating mystery. That expresses a link to the mythic status of the octopus for indigenous people. You see a similarity in your encounters with the octopuses Athena, Kali, Karma, and Octavia. You call that a quest, in your words, to fathom the soul, and you ask, what is the soul? And you say that you believe that the octopus has a soul. I mean, it's the title of your book. That's enlightening. After your dolphin book and your octopus book years later, you seem more confident and much bolder in exploring these ideas openly and personally. It seems that you go farther and cross a boundary with octopuses to say what you suggested but left unsaid about dolphins. Now you seek enlightenment that will change you directly, and that makes your octopus book even more remarkable. You are not sure the change, but you are totally open to the experience. Your questions are not abstract, detached rationally. They are questions that you are feeling and living. On page 2 of your octopus book, you say, in your words, I want to touch an alternate reality. I wanted to explore a different kind of consciousness, if such a thing exists. My last question returns to the issue of consciousness, remoteness, and intimacy, and your experiences with dolphins and octopuses. You say in the first few pages of your book, I wanted to touch an alternate reality. I wanted to explore a different consciousness. You wrote in the final words of your book, they have changed my life forever. I loved them and I will love them always, for they have given me a great gift, a deeper understanding of what it means to think, to feel, and to know. In the final segment of the final chapter, you have questions that remain, and you see limits to what you learned. But you are boundless and expansive in the changes you feel in yourself because of the octopuses. That feels transcendental. It feels honest. You believe that individual octopuses have souls. Those words of yours feel like more than writing for a dramatic climax or writing a poetic finale. Those words are far beyond what you wrote years ago in your book about dolphins in an earlier stage of your life. So, as a question, how far do you think you got in being enlightened by octopuses and dolphins? Did you reach an altered state of consciousness, a transcendental moment, or at least feel a sense that something like that might exist? Does that mythic transcendental connection come alive?
Yes, I think it really did. And, you know, humans have sought this connection with the holy, with the sacred, with the mystery, for as long as we know humans have been around. And perhaps, in fact, I think it's likely that other animals may have that same experience. I think we are given the opportunity to touch that reality sometimes, briefly. You can't necessarily keep it aflame all the time in your own consciousness, but it changes you forever simply to have touched it. I didn't I did not feel ready to write this book about consciousness until 2011. I had written dozens of books before, but I suddenly felt, maybe like an octopus about to lay her eggs, ready to take this on. And I trusted the octopuses would be my guides, and they were superb guides. And I'm now waiting to see what animal is going to take me where next.
Um, Talking about sameness and difference, you're aware that the octopuses are different from you. The octopus is aware that you're different from them. Um, and you're probably wondering, how do I look to an octopus? There's a there's a strange octopus mirror there of trying to fathom how you look in this strange octopus mirror, how you look to an octopus. So octopuses are totally different in intelligence from them. And if that's so, then what are we? Does an octopus change your sense of what a human being is?
But she was, and she was learning a great deal about me.
Sai, in your book about octopuses, you talk about the type of consciousness of octopuses. And in the final chapter of your book, the chapter is called Consciousness. As you say, renowned scientists signed a document called the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness, that creatures other than human beings have consciousness. These creatures are not machines programmed by biology. They are awake, they think, they feel, they sense. But what about curiosity? Is curiosity in itself a type of consciousness?
Well, I think curiosity is recognized as an attribute of what humans consider higher minds being those minds like our own. And I could go on for a while about the value of exploring minds that are unlike our own. Yet, understandably, I think scientists start by investigating those minds that are like ours, the animals that we recognize their intelligence, like chimpanzees. You can get a blood transfusion from a chimp. Like dolphins, we know that dolphins are very intelligent, or that their intelligence is like our own. But curiosity serves a valuable adaptive um, advantage, because if you're curious, you're going to explore your environment and have a better idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. You will have a better idea of where the food is. You'll have a better idea of where the best hiding places are. You'll have a better idea of how to disperse from your parents, for example. So curiosity has adaptive value. And I expect it is far more widespread in our universe than a lot of people recognize or relate to. Um, so I think for an octopus, they are a short lived species. You may know that giant Pacific octopuses only live 3 to 5 years. So their curiosity from the point that they hatch is quite intense. They have to learn everything that they need to survive. They are not being taught it by their parents. They hatch out of tiny eggs the size of a grain of rice. The father's long gone. He has nothing to do with caring for the eggs. The mother may care for the eggs until they hatch, but then shortly after that, she dies. So curiosity is a really important tool for an octopus. And I think their curiosity is even more intense in their short lives than ours is. Even though one of her arms had been bitten off by a predator, she was so bold and so curious that that did not deter her. I wondered while I was writing that first book, Secrets of, it was the first book I wrote about octopuses, by far not my first book, but the first one about octopuses. I did wonder, like, why are they bothering with me at all? Because it was thought that octopuses were famously solitary. And as you probably, for the giant Pacific octopus in the wild, the female would lay eggs and live only 6 more months. And at the end of those 6 months, if she is lucky, she might get to see her baby paralarvae hatch out of those eggs, and she will use her last breaths to blow her babies out of her lair into the open ocean, and then she will die. And during those 6 months, she never leaves her lair. And I experienced this with my friend Octavia. Octavia laid eggs. They were not fertile because there was no Mr. Octopus, but she laid them nonetheless. And she wasn't aware that they weren't fertile, so she cared for them as if they were. And she was constantly like fluffing them and making sure if there was a bad egg. We now know that they can taste whether one of your eggs goes bad. This is so interesting because they can taste the biome on the surface of the egg. She never left her lair where her eggs were laid. She no longer looked up at us through the water or played with us. We could feed her because we could put food on the end of a grabber and stuff it under there, and she would take that food. But in the wild, they don't eat, they don't hunt, they never leave. They are that devoted of mothers. Bless their 3 hearts.
And
Yeah, early on, that was the first octopus I met, Athena. And I knew she was old, but I didn't think that I would only get to see her like 2 or 3 times before she died. And I was so upset when she died. And usually, with a person that you've only met 2 or 3 times, you're not as upset with their death. But when you are singled out by someone like an octopus, it makes you feel so special. And she was my first. I'd never known anyone so unlike me. I'd never gotten to meet anyone or interact with anyone as unlike me as she was. It was as if, you were saying, as if I'd met an alien. It was like E.T. was suddenly my friend. And I was very upset when she died. And the same, oh my gosh, worse with Octavia, because I'd known her ever since she pretty much arrived at New England Aquarium till almost the very day she died. And I loved her. I don't know how she felt about me. I don't know if we could call it love. I don't even know.
And so I think we probably both agree that curiosity is a form of interest and knowing. But would you go as far as to say that curiosity is a form of affection, of bonding? Does curiosity create an emotional bond?
Yes, it certainly can. Um, if someone cares about you, what do they want to know? What's it like to be you? And one sure sign that someone doesn't really like you that much is if they never ask you any questions, um, or maybe they're only interested in one aspect uh, of your being. Maybe they just like you because you're good looking or something like that, but they don't care about your inner life or they don't care about your history. But I think we demonstrate caring about others by wanting to know, who are you? What's it feel like to be you?
And socially, you'd agree that it's an insult not to be curious about somebody.
Yeah, I think so. Don't you feel that way? If they don't even ask, how are you? Or, and you say terrible and they just go on, you know, um, well, sometimes folks don't ask because they're shy or they think they're um, probing too much. Humans have so many different motivations behind what they do, but you're so right. It's You feel fabulous when someone is interested in you, curious about you, wants to know about you. And Ann Landers always tells people who are like, gee, I don't know how to meet anybody. I don't know what to say. She always says, ask questions. It's the best way to show. And it's so interesting. People will often come away from some cocktail party or something believing that the person who asked the most questions was the most interesting person in the room.
Well, that's a fascinating observation. Um, that that would happen. Um, um, we are also very sensitive of the difference between genuine curiosity and fake curiosity. Like we as human beings, if we sense somebody is only going through the gesture of curiosity, and you must encounter that in your interviewing because that would be part of you establishing a rapport with the human beings that you're interviewing. In other words, you're going to get the best response from them if your curiosity is genuine rather than mechanical.
Well, and I think when we are interviewing people, our curiosity really is genuine. We really want to know, because we got to finish that article or we got to finish that book, and also because you begin to care about the person. But I have been so lucky, with very few exceptions, everyone whose time I have impinged upon to ask them questions has been glad to answer them. And I think part of that is that it feels good to be, to be this subject of someone's interest. And I think too, talking to you right now, your questions have been unusual and insightful, and they have reflected a lot of careful uh, study and interest about the things that I care about the most. So there's a real connection there, and connection feels good to us humans. And not only that, you're providing, in sharing this interview with others, you're providing a connection between not just you and me, but you and me and all of your readers and listeners. So that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. Both of us are aware of audience, and what you're talking about now, both of us are aware of the audience of people hopefully watching this podcast. Um, in terms of your interviewing technique and how you establish rapport, I'm seeing that you are a very animated and expressive person despite being an introvert. But you're very animated now, and there's a sense of genuineness in how you talk. And I suspect that a lot of your success as a writer has to do with that genuineness coming across in your curiosity, coming across in your questions. Whether or not you're not quite admitting it right now, that's what I would say from what I'm seeing. You're animated, you're interested. There's a genuineness. I think that's how you're establishing the rapport that partly makes your book so successful.
Well, thank you. That's great. I mean, I only write about stuff that I really care about because I work for myself. And the reason it comes across as genuine is it is. I mean, all of all of my work stems from what I'm most interested in. And when I get to interview somebody, we are sharing a mutual interest in whatever the heck the thing is. It's so funny too, because I know, in science, sometimes there's a sense of, oh, I don't know, a competition. And sometimes in the academy that happens as well. Um, but because I'm an outsider, because I am not a scientist, because I'm not an academician, I present no threat. Um, I'm offering a lot of the people that I interview a chance to get their message out and their work recognized. And during our conversation, we're both talking about things that we absolutely love. So there's no downside.
Of your life. So, as a question, how far do you think you got in being enlightened by octopuses and dolphins? Did you reach an altered state of consciousness, a transcendental moment, or at least feel a sense that something like that might exist? Does that mythic transcendental connection come alive?
Yes, I think it really did. And, humans have sought this connection with the holy, with the sacred, with the mystery, for as long as we know humans have been around. And perhaps, in fact, I think it's likely that other animals may have that same experience. I think we are given the opportunity to touch that reality sometimes, briefly. You can't necessarily keep it aflame all the time in your own consciousness, but it changes you forever simply to have touched it. I didn't I did not feel ready to write this book about consciousness until 2011. I had written dozens of books before, but I suddenly felt maybe like an octopus about to lay her eggs, ready to take this on. And I trusted the octopuses would be my guides, and they were superb guides. And I'm now waiting to see what animal is going to take me where next.